You can be strong, you can be mobile, and you can still be sitting on the bench watching game after game after game, but you do not then bridge the gap to take that strength and that mobility and turn it into power. And that's what I'm going to teach you how to do today. Maria here from Goalie Training Pro TV and goalietrainingpro.com. And for the last, more than 2 decades, I've been helping goalies do the type of training off the ice that helps drop their goals against average and boost their save percentage on the ice. And today we're talking about phase 4 of your off season. So this is a series that we've been doing since the start of the off season. If you found anything in this series helpful, hit me with a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. But let's dive into your power phase and what most goalies get wrong during this crucial phase of the off season. Before we start, we're gonna refresh your memory that last video in this series we talked about phase 3 of the off season, which is your max strength phase, where we're going to build kind of that envelope of force production capacity. And here, this phase is where you learn to unleash that force and how to apply it very, very quickly in the right direction with the right magnitude at the right time. This is what makes all that work you've done for the last 3 months finally pay off huge in the crease. This is the phase that makes other goalies' parents come up to your parents and be like, "Oh, what did Johnny or Jenny do for the off season? Like, what? How can I get some of that?" And the coaches and the refs and people will notice, okay, there have been some dramatic changes. So let's get into it. This is the mathematics part of the video, and it is power equals force times distance divided by time. So we've got the force. We're going to apply that force over a given distance, and the faster we can apply that force, the more power we're going to produce. So we spent that max strength phase building that force number. So now that's really, really big. Now we need to teach you how to apply it over a specific distance in less time. Has your goalie coach ever told you that you need to take a narrower stance because you can't produce power from a wider stance? Anybody heard that? Drop a comment or hit the like button if you're like, yeah, my goalie coach told me that. So I've had a narrower stance. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a narrower stance. So it's all depends on the situation. But the reason you aren't powerful from a wider stance is because you never train outer range power. I'm going to say that again. You never train outer range power unless you're in the Varsity Goalie Academy or the Game-Winning Goalie Formula or one of those programs. So how would our body have any idea how to produce outer range power if we don't train it? You're like, why didn't I think of that? So this is what I mean by outer range power. Let's start by talking quickly about what your off-ice power training probably looks like. Probably looks like this, hopping up on a box, maybe doing some skate bounds, single leg hops over a hurdle, those kinds of things. All really good exercises that at this phase of your training aren't really going to translate onto the ice. They would have been great exercises to use in the last phase, maybe in the first phase, to kind of just build that deceleration, acceleration. And I'm not saying you can't do 1 or 2 of those in this phase, but not going to be your bread and butter. Because how does this translate into this, that outer range power? So we need to work from those positions, or even from here, from a bottom up position, completely different from a top down power exercise. So it's a lot different learning to do those kinds of movements. And it's not even just that outer range, but it's also the angle. It's the direction where we need to push here, 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 all different angles and different ways of opening up our hips. So you need to incorporate those into this phase. Here's the thing about your power phase, and this is a mistake goalies make when they kind of are like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, they add too much volume. So what that does is it fatigues the system, you're not getting faster, you might be getting slower. It also adds a lot of wear and tear and skyrockets your risk of getting an overuse injury right before you head to training camp, or the dreaded training camp or early season injury that could derail your whole season. So do not make that mistake. What do your workouts in the gym look like in this phase? The volume goes down a little bit. You're still working on some lower rep ranges, but a little bit faster tempo. And it's not to say everything isn't gonna be explosive and fast, but there's definitely a shift. You're still gonna be doing some low volume, high intensity, high resistance lifts, but there's gonna be a bit of a shift towards more rate of force production. So for example, well, like if you're doing cleans, I don't really use cleans anymore because it gets to be a technique thing. I think we can get just as much out of doing a dumbbell squat jump. So let me show you exactly what I mean with that. So a clean would be, you know, with a barbell. You could do it with dumbbells too, coming from here to here. And the catch is kind of a tricky part. So sometimes the load is limited just by the technique. So honestly, I've just used, what we're trying to get out of this for any athlete is triple extension. So really, I just use that dumbbell squat jump. It's one of these ones where we will stay in that normal jump pattern because we just want to get as much force as we can out of those legs. But what I care about in this is rate of force production. So these are just 5-pound dumbbells, and my jump, I don't have a high vertical to start with, but you can see I'm not spending too much time on the ground. I'm getting up in the air as much as I do for an old gal. Now let's look, if I just add, because this is a huge mistake. Guys and girls, they'll grab like 25s. And let's just see what it looks like. I'm not even gonna try jumping with a 25. These are 15s, but just look at the difference from when I use those 5s. Do you see how long I'm lingering on the ground? That is called the amortization phase. The longer the amortization phase, the less power we're producing. We wanna use that stretch reflex. So we want to stretch the muscle, then contract it. We also have a reflex that reflexively contracts muscles as a response to rapid elongation. So we want to capitalize on that. So when you go heavier and you increase the amortization phase, decrease the height of the jump, now you're not training power. And this is when people are trying to train power and they end up getting slower. This type of training, I wouldn't mind in our max strength phase. There is something about the intention to accelerate that has a benefit, but not during the power phase. No. And since we are all about goalie specific training here, let's use a goalie specific example. So I'm just gonna do a super band resisted outer range lateral plyometric. So I'm gonna hop, pop, pop, but trying to keep that outer range. So when I load, I don't wanna get my hip all the way over here. I wanna be pushing from that outer range to work on that specific power that we talked about right at the very beginning. Now, let's see what happens if I add a heavier band, because I'm a super motivated goalie. I really, really want to get more powerful. And I know that I have to work hard. If I want anything, I need to work really hard. So I'm gonna use a heavier band, because if a little's good, more is better, obviously. Duh. So then let's see what this looks like now. So it takes that extra beat, and that's really just going a little bit heavier on the resistance. Let me make like an absurd comparison so that it really hits home. You do not see elite level sprinters like Usain Bolt running with like a 100-pound sled resistance. It's going to increase their ground contact time. It's going to change their mechanics. It's going to make them slow. Maybe a little bit of like downhill running to get more turnover. Maybe a little bit like a gentle grade uphill running to build a little bit more power, maybe a parachute, but not adding a whole bunch of resistance. The other thing you'll add during this phase is a little bit of neural complexity or a little bit of cognitive load. So instead of just like, oh, we're gonna do skate bounds now, and doing those, maybe there's some decision making. So it might even be something as simple as being in your wide stance and using, I really like the app called Switched On, but it'll just make different colors, and it can make, so you can set it up or you can do random generation. So let's just say we have red and green. If it's red, I'm gonna go that way. If it's green, I'll go this way. So it's like red, back, green, back. And then just working on getting that impulse power, not using your hands to generate power. So if I'm going this way, my head and hands go that way as well. Just the same way you want it to on the ice. That doesn't come in until your patterns are clean. So if even just with a predictable pattern, you're still like using your arms, well then you're not gonna add a neural complexity to that because you haven't even got that clean motor pattern down yet. Does that make sense? Drop a comment. Let me know, like, is this making sense? Or if you're like, I actually don't really know what you're talking about, and then ask your question. And then what happens is I answer your question for you. I'm like that. Okay, let's summarize. Let's land this plane. Here's what most goalies and really athletes in general get wrong when they're training power. They overdo their plyometrics without intention. The technique is sloppy. There isn't a systematic progression into what they're trying to achieve by using those plyometrics. Second big mistake is there was too much volume. When I give goalies speed workouts to do, I want to see a rating of perceived exertion like no more than 6, probably around 4. If I see 4 or 5, I'm like, yep, that's good. It's going to be hard on your brain. It should not be fatiguing. Once there's fatigue introduced or your legs are burning or whatever, now you're training stamina, not power. And it's training stamina is not going to make you powerful in the crease. So you need to keep the volume down. And some of you get faked out because you think, maybe you see like on Instagram or YouTube and like people are doing like plyometric exercises or like speed exercises, but they're using it as like a conditioning circuit. And that's not the purpose of training for speed. That's just, maybe they're just doing some kind of a general workout thing. Other big mistake, I think we've really covered this well, just training constantly in the sagittal plane. It's not that you can never train in the sagittal plane, but honestly, you don't earn your keep in the sagittal plane. It's got to be in the frontal plane and the rotary plane. And finally, you forget that this is where all the other phases pay off. So you can't just say, oh, I want speed, so I'm going to just jump to that one. It's not a smorgasbord. So if you haven't done the build-up, then doing this speed training now isn't really going to give you dramatic results. It is going to boost up your risk of injury. So you're really better to, as much as you'll hate the sound of it, go back and start with the foundation and build up, even if that runs into your season. So if you had been doing jump squats and box squats and you've been stacking 45-pound plates up this high and jumping onto them and thinking, nobody's scoring a wraparound on me this season. It's, bless you, but it's time to upgrade your training approach. So you can check out the description for how I can help design your program or what other programs are available to help you out with that. Because when you do the right kind of power training, it makes you faster in the crease. It helps you stop more pucks, but it also improves your injury resistance. So that wraps up this series on what your off-season training should look like. If you missed any of the phases, so we've got our movement phase, our functional phase, our max strength phase, and our power phase. If you've missed any one of those, then go back to my channel and hunt those down and make sure that you've got all those things covered before the season starts. It's all about, I talk to the goalies I work with about stacking bricks. So it's all about stacking the right work at the right time for the right outcome. If you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't even started my training and you're kind of panicking and you're not sure what to do, definitely drop a comment below. I will do my very best to help you out. Great way to get a hold of me is on Instagram. If you send me a DM, I am just at Goalie Training. I'm very good at answering those ones. And if you want to, we can even set up, not if we have to, but if we want to, we can even set up a time to have a little chat and see how we can kind of get you. We can't fast track you through 4 months of training in a month, but what approach you should take so that you're maximizing your gains before the season starts without increasing your risk of injury. It's the fun time of the year. That's it. You know the drill. I will see you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. I love you guys.